The great chamber of the Galactic Council stood in silence. Thousands of alien eyes watched, their gazes fixed on the tall golden platform at the center. The hall stretched wider than any cathedral on Earth, built of black stone and bright crystal that shimmered with cold light. The silence was not of peace. It was of judgment, the kind that came before punishment. The Valoran delegation, tall and silver-skinned with glowing eyes, knelt in chains. Their voices trembled as they begged the council for mercy. They spoke of loyalty, of treaties, of years of service to the galaxy's laws. But the chamber was deaf to their words. One alien leader, a towering insectoid with a voice like scraping metal, rose from his seat and hissed, "Mercy is weakness." The Valoran defied the council's command. For that, there is only one sentence. His words echoed through the vast chamber, and not a single leader rose to object. The Valoran's pleas grew louder, desperation filling their voices, but the council had already decided. The punishment was death. From the human seats at the far edge of the chamber, Earth's delegation watched in silence. Their faces were unreadable, their bodies still. Some expected them to shout, to protest, to rise in fury. But not a single human spoke. Their silence cut deeper than words. The Valoran turned toward them, their eyes wide with hope. Surely their allies, their friends, would defend them. Surely the humans, who had fought beside them in wars, who had shared blood and sacrifice, would rise. But the humans did not move. Guards in heavy black armor stepped forward. Their weapons gleamed in the council's cold light. One by one, the Valoran leaders were dragged across the floor, their chains clattering against stone. The sound echoed like thunder in the quiet hall. The Valoran cried out, their voices breaking, but their cries were swallowed by the silence of thousands of watching eyes. Humanity's representatives sat still, their hands folded. Whispers spread through the chamber. Alien leaders leaned toward each other, their voices low. "Why are the humans quiet?" asked a scaled reptilian lord, his yellow eyes narrow with suspicion. "Do they not care?" murmured another, a creature with skin like molten iron. "Or are they too weak to stand against us?" A few laughed softly, cruelly, their voices carrying across the chamber. To them, humanity's silence was proof. Proof that humans feared the council. Proof that the rumors of human weakness were true. But not all believed it. In the shadows of the chamber, a few alien leaders whispered something else. "Humans do not forgive easily," said one. "Their silence, it is not surrender. It is waiting." But their voices were drowned out by the roar of the council's decision. The insectoid leader struck the floor with his claw. "The Valoran are guilty. Their line will end today. Their homeworld will be stripped of its ships, its weapons, its voice. Let this be a lesson to all who would defy the council." His words rang like a blade drawn from its sheath. The Valoran screamed, their voices breaking into despair. They were dragged from the chamber, their footsteps fading into the long halls of the council prison. The chamber doors slammed shut, sealing their fate. A final echo rang through the hall, and then there was silence again. The humans sat unmoving. Their ambassadors' eyes were fixed on the empty platform where their allies had knelt moments before. No tears fell. No words were spoken. They stood only when the council dismissed them, their faces calm, unreadable, as though nothing had happened. And that silence spread fear, deeper than any protest could have. Outside the chamber, reporters and envoys swarmed. Alien scribes recorded the event, broadcasting it across the galaxy. News screens lit up on thousands of worlds. Council executes Valoran leaders. Humanity remains silent. The galaxy laughed. They mocked the humans for cowardice. They said Earth had no courage, no strength, no will to protect even its closest friends. But in the quiet corridors behind the chamber, far from the eyes of the crowd, the human delegation walked together in silence. Their steps were slow, heavy, but not weak. One of them, an old general with hair of iron gray, leaned closer to the ambassador and whispered only 4 words. "We do not forget." The ambassador gave a single nod. Not here. Not now. But the time would come. The galaxy did not understand humanity. To them, silence was weakness. But to humans, silence was patience. Patience sharpened into steel. Patience that waited for the right moment to strike. Humanity would not scream in the chamber. Humanity would not beg for mercy. Humanity would not fight where the council was strong. No, humanity would wait. And when the time came, they would strike so hard the galaxy would never forget. In the council chamber, the insectoid leader laughed with his allies. See how weak the humans are. They will not dare resist us. He raised a glass of dark liquid, and the others joined him. They laughed, believing victory was theirs. But far away, on the blue planet called Earth, in the silence of deep space, hidden machines began to stir. Massive shipyards, long thought abandoned, lit up with fire. Engines that had slept for years roared back to life. Black steel warships rose from their cradles, their hulls gleaming with the light of newborn stars. Quiet voices carried through underground bunkers and command rooms. Orders whispered, codes transmitted. One by one, the pieces of humanity's hidden strength came alive. The humans had been silent in the chamber. But the silence was not surrender. It was a promise. A promise written in steel, fire, and blood. The galaxy laughed at humanity. But soon, the galaxy would learn. Humanity's silence was the calm before the storm. And the storm was coming. The chamber doors closed, the lights dimmed, and the Valoran were gone. But in that silence, in that moment of stillness, the fate of the galaxy had already changed. The council thought they had broken the Valoran. They thought they had humiliated the humans. But in truth, they had awakened something far more dangerous. For when humanity loses a friend, when humanity watches an ally slaughtered, they do not surrender. They remember. They wait. And then, when the time is right, they rise. The galaxy did not know it yet, but the seeds of vengeance had been planted in that silent chamber. They would grow in darkness, in secrecy, and one day, they would bloom in fire. And when that day came, the stars themselves would tremble. The chamber that had once held the cries of the Valoran now stood empty, but the whispers did not stop. Across the galaxy, words moved faster than ships. Markets, stations, outposts, all spoke the same sentence: the Valoran were gone. Executed by the council in cold judgment. Yet the strangest part was not the execution itself. It was humanity's silence. On world after world, aliens leaned close in their taverns and war rooms, repeating the same question: why had the humans done nothing? Some said humanity was weak, just as the council had always claimed. Fragile creatures, too soft for war, too bound to their little blue planet to fight for more. Others mocked them openly, laughing at broadcasts that showed Earth's ambassador standing still, saying nothing as their allies were dragged to death. See, they said. Humans are cowards. But not everyone laughed. In the quiet corners of the galaxy, a different kind of whisper spread. A whisper of unease. Humans do not forget, murmured an old merchant who had once traded with Earth soldiers. If they are silent, it is because they are waiting. A council scout ship drifted through deep space, its crew half asleep in their chairs. They spoke idly about the execution, trading jokes about the Valoran's begging. But one young officer frowned as he read a report from human space. Mining shipments had gone missing. Factories on Mars had ceased public communication. Civilian traffic routes no longer sent regular updates. To him, these were not accidents. Something was moving beneath the surface. He brought the report to his captain, but the captain only laughed. Humans are nothing, he said, dismissing the officer with a wave. They will never rise against the council. Back on Earth, silence was the mask that covered fury. The final message of the Valoran had reached every human colony. In the recording, a broken voice spoke through static: do not forgive them. That sentence spread like fire. On Earth, in the domes of Mars, in the icy tunnels of Europa, on stations orbiting distant stars, every human heard it. And none forgot. Factories that had long been idle roared back to life. Deep under the oceans of Earth, hidden shipyards built in secret decades earlier began their work again. Massive steel frames rose from dark waters, their shapes hidden from alien eyes. Warships, larger and faster than any the Council expected, began to take form. Still, on the surface, humanity played its role well. Their ambassadors smiled in meetings. Their traders sold grain, fuel, and medicine. Their broadcasts showed laughter, music, art. To the galaxy, it looked as if humans were busy with small lives, too simple to fight. But behind the mask of peace, something else was growing. A message was sent in coded form, disguised as ordinary trade data. It spread from Earth to Mars, from Mars to the colonies at Proxima and Alpha Centauri. The message was short, only 3 words: the storm waits. Every admiral, every general, every hidden commander read it and knew what it meant. In the council's grand halls, leaders congratulated themselves. They boasted that their judgment had brought order once more. The Valoran were gone, the humans were silent, and the galaxy was theirs to command. But a few voices trembled. A scaled elder leaned close to her peers and whispered, "It is too quiet. Do you not feel it? The silence of humans is more dangerous than their anger." No one listened. The council believed it had crushed resistance. But in reality, it had only planted the seed of vengeance deeper. And somewhere in the dark between stars, a fleet began to gather. Silent engines hummed. Weapons gleamed in hidden hangars. The storm was not here yet, but it was coming. Before the Valoran leaders were dragged to their deaths, they managed one last act of defiance. A tiny device, no larger than a finger, hidden in the folds of their robes, pulsed with a faint blue light. It carried a message, short and fragile, and it slipped through the council's tight security like a whisper in the dark. The message crossed the stars, bouncing between hidden relays and cloaked satellites, until it reached Earth's command station buried deep beneath the oceans. The signal was weak, broken by static and interference, but the words were clear. A Valoran voice, hoarse with pain, spoke 3 sentences. "Brothers, we are finished. Do not forgive them." The message spread like fire. On Earth, it appeared first on the screens of the military council. Hardened admirals, who had fought wars decades before, sat in silence as the recording played. Their faces did not change, but their eyes told the truth. Rage burned there, cold and patient. On Mars, in the domes beneath the red dust, the message was replayed in secret by workers and soldiers alike. The words became a vow, a promise whispered from colony to colony. On Europa, in the icy tunnels where humans mined frozen oceans, crews stopped their drills and listened in silence. And in the distant colonies orbiting other stars, far from Earth, people gathered in darkened rooms and repeated the words, "Do not forgive them." It was not an order. It was not a command. It was a memory, burned into every heart. Meanwhile, the council celebrated. In their grand halls, the insectoid leader raised a glass to his allies. Another enemy destroyed. Another warning to the galaxy. Their laughter echoed like claws scraping against glass. Across alien worlds, broadcasts mocked humanity again. The humans said nothing, one commentator jeered. They did not lift a hand to save their friends. If they cannot fight for allies, they will never fight for themselves. Crowds cheered, believing the story was finished. But far beneath the oceans of Earth, war rooms glowed with light. Massive tables showed maps of stars, dotted with council strongholds. Silent men and women stood around them, studying every point. They spoke little, only passing coded phrases. Old generals who had waited years for unity now saw it forming. Every nation, every colony, every hidden fleet came together under one flag. Humanity had been divided for centuries. But the Valoran's last message bound them in a way no council could break. Factories that had once produced cargo ships now worked in secret to build destroyers. Civilian engineers disappeared from public sight, their names erased from records, but their hands built war machines in places no alien scanner could find. On Mars, great domes that had always been bright with farms turned dark as energy was redirected to hidden foundries. Engines the size of skyscrapers were assembled in silence. In the asteroid belts, miners carved weapons out of rock, hiding missiles in shafts no outsider would ever discover. Humanity did not shout their anger. They did not protest in the council halls. Instead, they prepared, piece by piece, step by step. Patience was their weapon now. Whispers reached alien ears. A smuggler told a tale of massive convoys vanishing near Earth space. A scout claimed he saw a fleet but was ordered to erase his report. Most ignored these rumors. The council assured them all was well. But in dark corners, the whispers grew. "The humans are building something," said a voice in a crowded bar on a neutral world. "They are too quiet," said another. "Too calm." Among the Valoran survivors, those not killed but scattered as refugees, the message became sacred. They repeated it as a prayer. Do not forgive them. They spoke it to their children, hiding in slums of alien cities. They carved it into walls where council patrols would not see. They knew their home was gone, their leaders dead, but they also knew this: humanity had heard. And humanity would answer. The galaxy laughed at silence. The council believed in fear. But the humans remembered. And when humans remember, they do not forgive. Somewhere in the void, a shipyard came alive. Steel wings stretched in the dark, engines roared awake, and shadows of war began to take shape against the stars. The council did not see it yet. The galaxy did not feel it yet. But the last words of the Valoran were already shaping the future. The silence was almost over. The storm was almost ready. Alien space was never quiet, yet lately there was a different kind of noise. Rumors moved faster than any signal, faster than any fleet. Council spies reported strange movements near human space, but no two reports were the same. One claimed to see lights in the asteroid belts, flaring and vanishing like hidden engines. Another swore that Mars had gone dark, cutting all civilian transmissions. A third insisted that Earth's trade convoys had grown smaller, their ships vanishing without explanation. In the council chambers, leaders dismissed these whispers as nonsense. Humans are weak, they repeated. They mourn their allies, but they do not prepare for war. Their words were confident, but not all believed them. A few older voices, the ones who had watched humanity rise in the last century, sat silent with unease. They remembered how quickly humans adapted, how stubbornly they survived. Yet their warnings were drowned in laughter and pride. Across the galaxy, council propaganda filled the airwaves. Broadcasts mocked humans, showing the silence of Earth's ambassador as the Valoran were dragged away. Commentators told citizens, "See how soft they are. See how fragile. They will never dare strike us." Crowds cheered, convinced the Valoran massacre had sealed the council's dominance. But in the shadows of human space, a storm gathered. Factories that once built farming machines now built armored hulls. Civilian workers vanished into hidden stations, their families told nothing. Whole colonies redirected power to vast shipyards cloaked beneath ice and rock. The largest engines ever created by mankind hummed quietly, their thunder hidden under layers of silence. A coded transmission rippled through every hidden fleet. 3 words appeared on encrypted screens: "The storm waits." Admirals read it and gave no outward sign, but orders shifted overnight. Supply ships moved quietly, war plans unfolded in sealed rooms, and old ships were reforged into predators. On one council world, a minor official reviewed a strange report. "Human shipyards on Luna have gone dark," it read. "Civilian production halts recorded. Possible preparation." The official carried it to his superior, who laughed and burned the report in front of him. "Do you fear insects, child?" the superior mocked. "The humans are nothing." The warning turned to ash, and with it, a chance to see the storm before it struck. Meanwhile, in a quiet room beneath the seas of Earth, a meeting took place. Generals, admirals, and leaders from every colony sat together at one table. For centuries humanity had argued, divided by borders and pride. But now they were bound by one truth, the Valoran's last words. Do not forgive them. Those words had burned through every human mind until no one could ignore them. And in that room, for the first time in history, Earth and her colonies spoke with one voice. The ambassador who had stood silent in the council chamber was there too. He listened as plans were laid, as fleets were assigned, as strikes were prepared. When the others finished, he rose and spoke quietly. "They laughed when we were silent," he said. "They will not laugh again." No one answered. They only nodded. Far across the stars, council patrols continued their rounds. Their ships glided through quiet systems, their crews relaxed, unaware. Yet some noticed things that did not fit. Abandoned stations that should have been empty now showed faint energy readings. Cargo ships that should have been full of grain carried sealed crates instead. Scanners picked up strange signals, coded in ways no alien mind could understand. Reports trickled back, but every warning was dismissed. The council's pride blinded them, and they did not see the truth. One night, in the vast chamber of the council itself, an elder rose from her seat. Her scales shimmered faintly in the cold light as she looked around at her peers. "Do you not feel it?" she asked softly. The humans are too calm. Their silence is not weakness. It is waiting. The hall erupted in laughter. Her words were buried beneath the arrogance of her kind. Yet in her heart, she felt the shadow of what was coming. Because the storm was not far away now. It had gathered strength, hidden under the mask of silence. And soon, very soon, it would break across the stars with a fury no one in the council could imagine. A council patrol ship drifted through the quiet dark of space. Its crew was bored, half asleep, watching the same endless stars slide across their screens. Nothing ever happened on these runs. Their duty was simple: scan, report, and remind smaller civilizations that the council still ruled the skies. But this night was different. The first sign came as a flicker on their sensors. A faint shadow moved across the edge of their scans, too sharp to be a rock, too fast to be a drifting comet. The crew leaned forward, adjusting their equipment. The shadow vanished. For a moment, they laughed it off. But then the lights in the control room dimmed, and a low alarm echoed through the ship. The scanners went dead. Silence. The captain barked orders, demanding answers. The crew worked frantically, resetting systems, trying to bring the ship's sensors back. For a heartbeat, they succeeded. On their screen appeared a single image, an enormous shape, black against the stars, so vast it seemed to swallow light. A warship. Human. The patrol ship never sent a second report. Minutes later, all that remained of it was a field of twisted metal and frozen bodies, drifting silently in space. Nearby, a council cruiser received a faint distress signal. They hurried to investigate. What they found was only wreckage. Among the ruins, floating like a deliberate message, was a piece of scorched hull plating. Burned into the steel was a symbol. The emblem of Earth. News of the loss spread quickly. At first, council leaders dismissed it as an accident, claiming the humans were too weak for such an attack. But whispers began to move through the galaxy. The humans were no longer silent. Something was happening in the dark, and no one could stop it. In the days that followed, more ships vanished. A freighter near the border of human space disappeared without trace. A small fleet patrolling near Mars was found drifting, gutted and lifeless, its crews gone. Each time, the survivors, or what little wreckage was left, carried the same mark, the emblem of humanity burned into steel. Panic began to stir in the council. They had expected the humans to grieve, to beg, to surrender. Instead, the humans struck like hunters in the dark. Swift, silent, and merciless. One alien minister slammed his clawed hand on the council table. "This is not war," he snarled. "This is revenge." And he was right. On Earth, fleets were no longer hiding. From the oceans rose warships with black hulls and glowing engines. From Mars, massive carriers lifted into orbit, armed with weapons the Council had never seen. From the outer colonies, small but deadly strike craft poured into space. Humanity was not waiting anymore. Humanity was moving. Yet the strikes remained precise. They did not waste their strength on open battles. Instead, they chose their targets carefully: patrol ships, isolated fleets, vulnerable convoys. Each attack was a message. Each message whispered the same truth: we remember the Valoran. We do not forgive. Alien civilians watched the reports in growing fear. For years they had mocked humans as fragile, harmless creatures. Now, those same humans were hunting fleets that had once ruled unchallenged. Whole taverns went quiet when the subject was raised. Traders whispered of vanished routes, of colonies that no longer dared to trade with Earth. Even those who had laughed the loudest began to wonder if the Council had made a mistake. In the Grand Chamber, the insectoid leader roared for stronger measures. "Send fleets. Crush them before they spread further," he demanded. But when fleets were sent, they too began to vanish. Humanity knew how to hide, how to ambush, how to strike where it hurt most. Their silence had been patience. Their patience had become a weapon sharper than any blade. And in the shadows of the galaxy, as more and more wreckage carried Earth's emblem, one thing became clear. Humanity's revenge had begun. And it would not stop. The Council's patience finally broke. For weeks, their patrols had been vanishing, their convoys destroyed, their fleets reduced to drifting wrecks marked with Earth's emblem. Fear spread among their people, and whispers of human revenge echoed across the stars. To silence that fear, the council gathered its strength. A fleet unlike any assembled in centuries was launched, hundreds of warships, bristling with weapons, engines blazing like fire. They were sent to crush humanity, to burn Earth and Mars until nothing remained but ash. The council promised the galaxy a swift victory, a reminder of their power. But when the fleet arrived in human space, they found nothing. The stars were silent, the planets quiet, the space around Earth empty. Scanners reached across the void but found no enemy. No ships. No stations. No resistance. The admirals mocked the humans again, laughing at their cowardice. "They have fled," one said. "They know they cannot stand against us." Then the silence broke. From the dark side of the moon, engines roared to life. From beneath the frozen seas of Europa, massive warships rose into the stars. From the asteroid belt, hidden hangars opened, releasing swarms of strike craft. The humans had not fled. They had hidden. And now they struck. The first wave hit without warning. Council destroyers at the edge of formation vanished in storms of fire. Carriers were torn apart by missiles that seemed to come from nowhere. Human warships moved with terrifying speed, striking from the shadows, then vanishing before the council could respond. Admirals barked orders, but their fleets were collapsing. Council ships fired blindly into the void, their weapons tearing apart empty space. Each time they regrouped, another section of their formation disappeared. Panic spread through the crews as reports flooded in. Sector 3 destroyed. Our carriers are burning. We can't track them. Human ships were not larger. They were not more advanced. But they were faster, smarter, and driven by fury the council had never understood. They fought like predators, circling their prey, striking where it was weakest, then fading into the dark. The galaxy had seen wars before, but this was not war. This was vengeance made flesh. A council flagship, massive and ancient, tried to rally the fleet. Its captain shouted into the comms, demanding order. For a moment, the chaos slowed. Then a shadow fell across the flagship's hull. A human dreadnought, black and silent, emerged from the void directly above it. For a heartbeat, the two ships faced each other. Then the dreadnought fired. The flagship split apart in a single blast, its pieces scattering into the dark like sparks from a dying fire. Every council crew who saw it felt the same thing: fear. Fear of a species they had mocked, ignored, and underestimated. Fear of humanity's silence turned to wrath. By the time the battle ended, the council fleet was no more. Hundreds of ships had been reduced to wreckage. Survivors scattered into the void, carrying tales of horror back to their worlds. Of humans who appeared from shadows. Of warships that struck like lightning. Of silence that became fire. On Earth, the admirals watched the reports with cold eyes. They did not celebrate. They did not cheer. They only marked the victory and moved to the next plan. The war had only begun. And across the galaxy, whispers spread faster than ever. "The council fleets are falling," voices said in fear. "The humans are not fighting for victory. They are fighting for memory." The storm had broken, and nothing would stop it now. The chamber that once rang with arrogance now trembled with fear. The council gathered in the same vast hall where they had mocked the Valoran and laughed at humanity's silence. But this time, there was no laughter. The air was heavy, filled with tension so sharp that even the strongest leaders dared not raise their voices too loudly. Reports arrived in a constant stream, each worse than the last. Entire fleets destroyed. Patrol routes abandoned. Colonies cut off from supplies. One messenger, shaking as he spoke, delivered the latest news. "The fleet we sent to Mars, it is gone. Every ship. Not a single survivor." His words fell into the silence like stones dropped into a well. The insectoid leader slammed his claws against the table, the sound echoing like thunder. "Lies!" he shouted, though his voice carried more fear than certainty. "The humans cannot do this. They are too weak." But no one met his eyes. No one agreed. They all had seen the same reports. Another counselor, scaled and old, whispered in a trembling voice, "We thought their silence meant fear. But it meant patience." They waited for the moment to strike, and now, her words faded as she looked around the chamber. Many nodded in grim agreement. They could not deny it any longer. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not broken. Humanity was rising. Screens flickered on the chamber walls, showing grainy footage captured from the wreckage of destroyed fleets. Human warships emerging from shadows, their black hulls marked with the emblem of Earth. Dreadnoughts carving through carriers with terrifying precision. Swarms of smaller ships overwhelming destroyers like wolves tearing down prey. The counselors who had once sneered now sat frozen, their faces pale with dread. "They fight differently," one muttered. "They fight as though victory is not their goal." "It is not," another whispered. "They fight for memory. For the Valoran." The insectoid leader hissed, trying to regain control. "We will send more fleets. More soldiers. We will crush them with numbers." But a new voice, cold and sharp, cut through the chamber. "Numbers mean nothing against those who do not fear death." Every eye turned to the speaker, a thin avian leader whose people had suffered in past wars. He stared at the insectoid with narrowed eyes. "You have awakened a predator. And now it hunts us all." The chamber erupted into chaos. Some shouted for negotiations, begging to send envoys to Earth before more fleets were destroyed. Others demanded harsher measures, scorched earth tactics, the burning of every human colony. But beneath the shouting, beneath the arguments, one truth weighed on every mind. The Council was losing control. Outside the chamber, panic spread across the galaxy. Alien civilians whispered in markets and taverns, afraid to speak too loudly. Stories of human attacks grew wilder with each retelling. Some claimed entire planets had vanished, their skies filled with fire. Others swore humanity had weapons the Council could not comprehend, weapons that bent the stars themselves. Fear fed on fear, until even the Council's propaganda could not quiet it. Back in the chamber, silence finally fell again. The insectoid leader looked around, his eyes gleaming with desperation. "What do you propose?" he demanded. His voice no longer carried authority. It carried fear. No one answered at first. Then the scaled elder, her voice low but steady, said, "We should never have touched the Valoran. Their blood is on our hands, and the humans will not stop. They will come for us, for this very chamber. And when they arrive, no walls will save us." The words hung heavy in the air. Every leader felt the weight of them, the shadow of what was to come. For the first time in centuries, the Council no longer felt immortal. They felt hunted. And out in the void, beyond the reach of their failing fleets, humanity's warships moved like shadows across the stars. Surrounding systems, cutting supply lines, closing in on the heart of the Council. Step by step, the hunters drew nearer. The chamber that once laughed at human silence now waited in terror for the sound of their footsteps. The skies above the Council's capital burned. For centuries, that world had stood as the center of power, its towers gleaming with wealth stolen from 100 races, its fleets orbiting in perfect formation like shields of iron. No enemy had ever reached it. No war had ever scarred its soil. The Council had believed it untouchable. Until now. Humanity's fleets emerged from the void like shadows turned to fire. Dreadnoughts, cruisers, carriers, each one marked with the emblem of Earth, slid into orbit with terrifying silence. The first wave of missiles streaked downward, turning the skies into storms of light. Council defense grids activated, spitting fire back into the heavens. Orbital cannons roared, burning through the blackness. But the humans did not flinch. Their warships moved with precision, weaving through fire, tearing apart the defenses piece by piece. Council fleets tried to rally, but their formations broke almost instantly under the relentless assault. Human ships fought with no hesitation, no pause, striking with a fury sharpened by memory. Every blast was for the Valoran. Every kill was a message: humanity does not forgive. From the surface, civilians looked up at the burning skies, their screams drowned by thunder. The towers that had once stood as symbols of power shook as shockwaves rolled through the atmosphere. Markets, palaces, and temples trembled as the humans rained vengeance from above. Inside the grand chamber, the Council leaders cowered. The insectoid slammed his claws against the table, demanding his fleets return fire, demanding the humans be stopped. But his voice was drowned out by alarms, by the shudder of impacts, by the reality that their fleets were gone. "They are here," whispered the scaled elder, her voice breaking. "The silence we mocked has become the storm that ends us." And then, through the shattered skies, the humans came closer. Dropships broke free from carriers, cutting through the atmosphere in fiery trails. They landed on the Council's capital, disgorging armored soldiers with cold, steady eyes. These were not invaders searching for conquest. They were executioners. The soldiers moved with discipline, cutting through resistance, storming government halls, crushing defenses that had once seemed unbreakable. Streets filled with fire, the thunder of boots echoing through the city. At last, the humans reached the chamber. The doors that had once sealed the galaxy's rulers from the outside world were torn apart in seconds. Smoke poured in. The councillors stared as figures stepped through, their armor black, their visors glowing with the reflection of fire. One human soldier stepped forward, his voice calm, cold, and final. "This is for the Valoran." The councillors had no words. Some trembled. Some cried. Some tried to stand tall in defiance. But it did not matter. The humans had come not for negotiation, not for mercy. They had come to finish what had begun when the council shed innocent blood. And in the silence that followed, the chamber of the council, the chamber that once judged humanity, fell forever. Across the galaxy, the message was clear. The era of the council was over. The galaxy that had laughed at Earth now whispered a different name with fear and awe. Humanity. The silence of the past had become vengeance, and vengeance had become legend.